if we have time, but I'm sure I'm going to work through this pretty quick. We'll have time. I also have a questionnaire. If each of you could fill out at the end, I would very much appreciate it. Okay, onward. All my clickers. Clicker, clicker. Okay, Book 2, Adversity and Prophecy. I do an introduction to both books. There's an introduction to Book 2, which we'll get to in a sec. All of these topics here, none of which probably mean anything to you, but all of those topics will be discussed. Introduction to Journey of Truth continues. I did a lucrative film deal. I'm reflecting back now. I did a lucrative film deal in 1993. I reflected, I prayed virtually instantly after saying that prayer. I remember distinctly. It was in Kensington in my office, and it immediately came to me, write a book. Don't know where that came from. Never had planned to write a book. A week later, I left the film business as president and CEO of the film studio and began to study and write. I started with the study of truth. That chapter has actually been moved to the back of the book, but it was written in Book 1, but it's been moved to the end of Book 2. We talked about the dolphins, more dominant AN, 11/11 awareness. The story begins in Book 1, completed in 1999. 8 years later, in 2007, completed Book 2. The significant things discovered in this chapter are 11 dimensions and the significance. I finally found my 11/11 and what 11/11 means. I will share that with you tonight. And I will also share with you why the ancients believed that we lived in an 11-dimensional universe and why science also believes we live in an 11-dimensional universe. Welcome. There's some coffee and water there if you want to grab it before you sit down. And we're just getting started. Okay, so that's the introduction to Book 2. My Journey of Truth Continues, it's called. My spiritual awareness was growing. I was starting to observe signs. I was much keener on observing signs. Something Maureen, my wife, would often say to me, well, you're trying to read something into everything. Well, you've got to observe signs, and if you can line them up with proper things, dates, numbers, and stuff, it's amazing what can be determined from an event or an observation with an event, particularly when you align it with numbers, dates, people. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the day the world changed and the profound messages that I received. So part 1 is called The Time of Change. Remember, we're entering now 2000. I was confused. This chapter is called Divine Inspiration or Desperate Obsession, because at this point now, I am not sure whether I'm getting divine inspiration or whether I'm just off on some desperate obsession, some strange, obsessed man looking at all of these weird numbers and places and things. That's where I'm at come 2000, because I didn't have the answers I wanted. So, Chapter 1, Divine Inspiration or Desperate Obsession. After the year 2000 and the end of the world paranoia, year 2000 passed without a whisper. Everybody thought, computers are going to crash. It's the end of the world. Stock up in water. I was one of them. And that all passed. Nothing happened. I did not publish Book 1. Some people had asked me about publishing. I'd given it to a couple people. And I said, no, my key 11/11 time is still an unanswered question for me. I continued my research. Went into a different phase of research. I started studying holy texts. I started studying famous scientists who I knew were involved in the study of Scripture. Not too many people realize that Newton, who is called the father of modern science, spent about 25% of all of his time studying the Bible. He was absolutely convinced there was a code in the Bible and was convinced that there were end-time dates in the Bible. And we were not able to find that out until almost a century after he died. When we got his notes. I started beginning to study the ancients, Tutankhamun, philosophers such as Pythagoras, which we went into before. And then I went into this phase where I started studying keywords in the Bible, because I felt so sorry for Newton. When he was looking for keywords in the Bible, he would have to go through the entire Bible to look for how many times lamb is in the Bible. So he would have 20, 30 keywords all at once that he would look through and then go through the Bible weeks on end looking for those 20 and 30 words, where they were placed and how many times they were said. Today, I can say lamb, and it'll tell me how many times lamb's in the Bible. I can press any word I want because of the internet and the search capacity within that to virtually find anything. So I started that. I started to search for coded words. I thought of Newton searching for codes by hand with no computer searches. I studied Bible keywords along with Mason symbols and numbers. We went over Masons last week. I started building graphs that revealed clues to Bible symbols, planetary positions, key historic dates, and weeks. I spent weeks doing that. And my wife Maureen can attest to it. I have about 20 boxes at home. I was going through probably a stack of paper like that a day, 2 or 3 cartridges a day. This went on for months. And by studying the Masons and biblical keywords, I was able to develop graphs where I could see, just using numbers, I could find the dates that the United States started. I could find the alignment of all of the planets. It was absolutely incredible, but it didn't mean anything to me. It didn't answer anything to me other than reinforce this notion I had that Freemasons were involved in many mysteries that they keep secret. Spent days studying key places, latitudes, and longitudes. That was part of my studies after I did AN and found out that the 4 of the most significant civilizations on the planet were in 4 corners of the earth, all beginning with the letters AN. So I started looking at longitude and latitude. All of this information I did was going to be in a book called Outside the Divine Pattern, which is after this book. So there's no mention of that in there. But I'm just showing you where I'm at this particular time, basing into book 2. A year passed since the completion of book 1. The project had consumed me almost a decade of study and research, over 1,000 reference books, and boxes of research material. As I indicated before, my library at home still has over 4,000 books, which I still refer to often. And then Lawrence keeps doing more deals. So. Enough already, is what I was thinking. I was becoming mentally exhausted, emotionally drained. I was working many, many hours. Sometimes I would not sleep for 2 or 3 days. I would get on a roll and start writing, and I wouldn't sleep. Maureen would get up in the morning and find me asleep at my desk. She'd wake me up, I'd have something to eat, and I'd just get started again. And this went on for years and would later affect my health. My body was starting to feel the burden of continued study, let alone my brain. Hi there. How are you? No worries, lots of seats. Chapter 2, Time of Adversity and Change. Years of research on the internet. I took an interest in building websites. When I was starting to do research on this was in 1994, 1995. Google didn't exist. Yahoo was just coming out. There were over 40 40 search engines, of which I think only 2 exist today in that lot. Ask Jeeves and ones like that. And I was fascinated by the internet, the highway of knowledge that was coming into us. And I felt an urge to design websites because I've always been a pretty creative guy, architecture in school and that type of thing. So I took a course and bought Front Page 2000, which is a web page creation. Throughout the book, just plugged in the thing. The book was this big, and